Now have a look. If I bring back the Clockwork tab, we'll go to Database. This all looks pretty good. No N+1 problems. But if I view a specific category, well, we only have one post here. So again, if we have a look, it will appear that we're safe. But let's add a few more posts and then try again. So it looks like the category is a liquid. Let's see. Categories, and that has an ID of 1. Okay, let's create a few more posts specifically in that category. We'll say app models post. Let's create 10 posts, but specifically where the category ID is 1. Okay, so now back to Table Plus, you'll see we have 10 more blog posts that are associated with that category. So now if I come back and give this a refresh, we have a lot more to work with here. Okay, let's see Clockwork again. This time, it's instantly clear again. We're back to that N+1 problem. So you always need to be careful about this. But now it can be a little confusing at first. If you go back to your routes file, you know how to eager load as part of a new query. But what about situations like this, where you're working on an existing model? Well, in those cases, like here and here, you can reference the load method, like this. I will do these both at once, and we'll say load the category and the author. Okay, so now back to Firefox, I give this a refresh, and this time we've yet again solved that problem. We're now down to 4 queries, but don't forget you could even cache that so that for most page loads, you execute 0 database queries. But anyways, 4 versus what we had earlier, which was 24. Big improvement. But now on that note, it is true this gets a little annoying that we have to do it over and over. So I will show you an alternative with a caveat to be a little careful about it. Nonetheless, it's a tool to have in your belt. If we go to the post model, you do have the option to say, well, every time I fetch a post, I always want the author included as part of the result set. The property is called with. Give me a post with these default relationships. So if I were to say category and author, notice back in my routes file, we could get rid of all of that. And then down here, exact same thing. We simplified it a bit, but if we come back and refresh, notice you still only have 4 queries because we are eager loading by default. And again, I just want to make it super clear, if you didn't have that with property, you'd be back to 24 queries. So when you add this here, it is a default for every post query you perform. Have a look. PHP Artisan Tinker, app models post. Why don't we take a total of 2 and get the results? Well, now notice if I scroll up, yes, you have a collection of posts where each post includes the category and includes the author. Okay, so now you might be thinking, well, why wouldn't you always do that? And the response is, well, it just sort of depends. It might be okay, or you might be in a situation where you're constantly loading relationships even when you don't need them. Now, finally, the last little tip here, if we were to, again, fetch a post, yes, you see the category and the author. If you need to selectively disable that, maybe for one query where those aren't relevant, you can say post without in those cases. So this would allow you to disable auto-loading or eager loading the author relationship. So yeah, if you wanted to turn both of those off, again, these are just options you might consider. Another option would be to never append to the with property and instead extract a repository or a special helper method that is responsible for grabbing your posts, applying your filters, and eager loading any relationships. Until then, this will do.